Hi everyone, this is Sayanti bringing you another episode of Sayanti Finance. Today we are going to do a composition with oil pastels for a Mother's Day. It's a simple mother and child composition where I'm depicting the mother and child in a moonlit night. So there's going to be a lot of blues and purples and all the tones of blues and purples on a gray Canson Mi-tientes paper for this particular composition. All the materials are listed below in the video description, so check them out if you have any questions regarding the materials that I'm using. So anyways, after making the first initial drawing with the graphite pencil, I am starting off with different shades of blues and purples and kind of creating an outline of the body, especially the exposed parts of the body, the skin tone to be more precise of the mother and the child. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to put in the darks first, and since this is a moonlit night, I'm going to use a lot of grays and blues and purples instead of the regular skin tones to kind of get that nighttime moonlit night look. So after putting that outline and the darker areas first, I'm coming back with a couple of different shades of grays and flesh tint, mixing them together to kind of have a flesh color. However, it is kind of toned down by gray because I do not want the warm flesh tones to show. I just want it to be kind of a part of the moonlit landscape. So it's more like a bluish grayish kind of skin tones that I'm putting in for the mother and the child or the baby. You can see that at this point the colors are not blended at all, so I'm coming back with my clay shaper tool, and it comes in a set of 7 different tools of the similar kind, just different shapes, and they are great for blending oil pastels if you do not like to use solvents. So after using them, or rather blending with them and pushing the pastel in, I am coming back with my white pastel and creating a little bit of highlights. It's not very important to be very precise about the highlights at this point because I'm going to come back and make a lot of changes later. Now I am filling in the darker areas in the dress of the mother, and I wanted it to be a crimson color dress, but once again, since it's a nighttime composition and it's a moonlit night, so even the crimson has the darker areas is getting a lot of purples and blue tones, but the lighter areas are the highlighted areas. I'm using the couple of shades of magentas and crimsons, and then I'll come back with some bright red highlights here and there. Once again, I'm keeping the highlights minimum. Anyways, the highlights need to be minimum so that it becomes prominent, and in this case I do not want the more bright colors like yellows and reds too much, so that it stays attuned with the nighttime landscape or nighttime composition. Now I am doing a little skirt for the mom, and this is kind of a painting I thought anybody can relate to in one way or other. Every one of us have had that very special childhood moments with your mom, looking at the moon and calling the moon and pretending that the moon is an animate person. So that's why I chose this topic or this composition. So anyways, back to the actual drawing. Once again, in the skirt I put in the dark blues first and then came back with some highlights. Then again I did a little bit of contrast creation by making the darks darker and the lights lighter. Now I'm adding a little bit of border here and there to the outfit the lady is wearing, and that I'm doing with gold. And this is probably the only place where I'm going to use yellow or golden or that kind of colors, because just like I mentioned 500 times already, that I want to keep it like a very muted nighttime composition, so not using all the brighter colors here this time. So Now I'm going on to the hair, but after putting in an initial layer of brown and black and purple in the hair of both mother and child, I thought, let's go to the background first and get that done first, and then I'll come back to the hair, because if the background is already put in, I will be able to do the contour of hair against the background much better. It kind of simplifies the process a little bit. So that's why after filling in an initial layer, I went on to the background. For the background, I am using kind of like a nighttime sky look, but it is not really a very realistic look, because then I would have to use like grays and very dark blues and almost black colors, but I wanted it to look a little bit bright too. So I started off with this bright blue color and I put it in all the areas. Then I'm come back for a couple more layers to just add more pigment onto the area before I start blending. Then I am adding a little bit of the lighter sky blue colors here and there, because I will also make some illusion of clouds in the sky. And then I'm going back to the darker, brighter blue color and adding some more pigments. I am going to use a lot of different shades of blues here, and there will be a lot of darker shades of blues rather too, because obviously it's a nighttime sky, so it's pretty much going to be dark, but I did not want it to look the gray dull color, so I went for a little bit of this brighter look, which might not be very realistic, but it will end up looking very good. So now I'm coming back with my blending tool once again and pushing all the colors back, because unless I push in the first layer of colors, it is hard to judge that how much pigment is there and how much more pigments I need to put on, and depending on that, how much more layers of pigments I need to put on. So onto the moon, what I'm first doing is adding some whites around, and in the central portion you can see that I've added some grays and blues to kind of give that illusion of the craters of the moon in those areas. Then I'm going to come back and add some more of browns, grays, even a little bit of black, and then blend all of that with my blending tool. Notice that some of the black, some of the sharper edges, I'm keeping it just like that while I'm blending some others and then adding some blues. This kind of creates a visual kind of contrast, if you may, or a lot of different textures also. And moon, as we all know, is not like a bright white circle disc. It's more, it has a lot of texture, so I just wanted to make it look like more or less a realistic look. It's not a very big moon, so I cannot do a lot of details, but I just wanted to have a three-dimensional look as well, so making the edges a lot brighter than the central part, and that kind of gives you the rounded illusion as well. And then going around the hand with a lighter blue and white, and then blending it all out so that it kind of looks brighter. And I just wanted to make the hand look like as if it's going, as if it's brightened, just like, because just as the mom reaches out for the moon. So that is what I'm trying to get here. And you can see that I am kind of destroying some of the details that I've built on earlier, which is fine, because I can always get on and build more details. At the very end of this painting, or a little bit from now, you will see that I'm also using a black color pencil, which is a Polychromos black color pencil. If you get too tired working on very small fine details with the oil pastels itself, then it's okay to use oil pastels. It's oil based color pencils. It is completely archival. Or you can also use charcoal pencils for those little lines like flyaway hairs, or just contouring just a little bit. I mean, obviously a very accomplished oil pastel artist might say that it's cheating because you have to all use just oil pastels, but you know, in art the end product is more important to me than what rules and regulations really are following. So Well, that's just my opinion, and you can agree or disagree to it. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. And definitely, if you're liking the video, give me a thumbs up. It means the whole world to me, motivates me like anything. And do not obviously forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Now, again, going back to the drawing, you can see that I'm adding a little bit of highlights and details, and I'm working with the edge of my blending tool to kind of push out the highlights. I don't want all of the pigments just to stay on top. It would have looked okay if I was going for an impressionistic style, but I am going for a more of a realistic look. Like, I want the hand to just look like a real hand, or the face or a hair to look as much as real as possible. Now I'm going back to the hair. I'm adding a lot of very dark blues, blacks, some purples, and some browns. And you can see that some of the areas I'm making darker than the others, and mostly I'm adding lighter colors on the edges to kind of give the illusion of the light reflecting off the hair from the moon, light of the moon reflecting off the hair, to be more precise. And then coming back with my blending tool, first of all, just pushing all the pigments back into the paper to understand how much pigment I've already laid down and how much more it requires. Now this is an area where I'm using the black oil-based pencil from Polychromos, and this just makes my life a lot easier to draw a few of those flyaway hairs here and there and get teeny tiny details, which otherwise I would have had to spend quite a bit of time just drawing and then scratching out. You can do that, there's nothing wrong in it, and I've done that very many times. I have videos showing how to get fine details just using oil pastels. But if you want easier, simpler method, then use charcoal pencils or oil-based color pencils. I'm going back and adding some highlights, and then I'm coming back and adding some darker areas. It's very important to create some contrast, the light against the dark and the dark against the light. That is what creates the visual attraction for the viewer. Adding some little bit of darks and lights once again to the hair and making it look three-dimensional. And that pretty much brings us to the end of the painting. There is nothing more to it other than just thanking you for watching. I know it's a little bit too early for Mother's Day, however I thought better early, so that if you want to make this kind of a painting for your mom or just for yourself, then you have that reference. And that is all for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer and respond as soon as possible. Thank you very much once again, and I will see you next week.